What's up, YouTube? Is that time of year again, or time of the season where we guess what skills will be nerfed in the next league? A lot of people are trying out different league starters and testing out different builds to play at league start, and a lot of times it might be a fool's errand because we have no idea what's going to get nerfed, or do we? I think in the upcoming league 3.17, there are a few things that I believe are guaranteed to get nerfed, and then there's some things that are more than likely to maybe get nerfed, and then there's other things that will probably never be nerfed. Now, you might be wondering, how does GGG actually do their nerfs? Do they just throw some darts at the dartboard and pretty much nerf whatever it lands on? And the main thing that GGG determines what they nerf on is based on popularity. You could almost guarantee that the number one ascendancy, if there's one that's super out of line, and I'm looking at you, Occultist, that it will probably get tuned down a little bit in some numerical way. And this has happened time and time again. We saw this with Raider. And if you see a skill at the very, very top that's completely dominating, and maybe one that's perhaps dominating on the first 2 days of the league, or a skill that's completely out of line in the gauntlet and has an insanely high play rate, then it will probably get nerfed. Like, we saw this with slams, we see this with a lot of different things. We saw this with Winter Orb in the past, we saw this with Bladefall Blade Blast. And in the end, that's just what they do. They nerf the popular things, they create this meta. So we can kind of find out what will get nerfed. And they, of course, will love to nerf immunity builds. No one can be immune in GGG's eyes because it just trivializes the game and it makes stuff like Delve and a lot of other aspects of the game completely trivial. So let's go over what will guarantee to be nerfed and then what will most likely be nerfed. So first up, we have the Gauntlet winning Bale Seismic Trap Exsanguinate Saboteur. Now this build is incredibly overtuned. It probably should have been nerfed already in this league, but they left it in its current overpowered state. Now the reason why this skill is so overpowered is because of its incredibly high base damage, the fact that it can scale with duration, the fact that it can scale with AoE overlap, making this skill a true powerhouse. Now, if you do notice, most of the OP skills in this game are able to shotgun in some form or be able to have multiple ways to scale their damage, and Seismic Trap is definitely one of them. And it also has incredible base damage to boot. So this build is just too strong. It does too much damage for the gear investment. You can do Awakener, you can do Fear with almost no investment at all. And if you do use March of the Legion, you can pretty much do everything in the game on day one. And it's actually just an absurd build. Now, Exsanguinate will not be nerfed on this build. The reason why this build is so strong is purely because of Seismic Trap, although Exsanguinate also makes this clear very, very good. But definitely expect to see Seismic Trap nerfed. I'm probably estimating around a 30% damage nerf or something like that. And even then, it will probably be still extremely, extremely strong. Now, next up, we have another gauntlet clearing build, which is Ignite-based DD. Now, the reason why this build is so strong is because you are using Corpse Life on your Spectres that adds it to the Desecrate pool. And the Corpse Life is absolutely crazy. Some of these corpses have 900% life. And when you blow them up, it does almost the entire boss's full life in its Ignite damage. Now, some people say that this might be a bug with the Corpse Life on Desecrate. I'm not really sure what's going on, but you can see here, this is a Fear, super high quad, and this guy is doing it with almost no gear at all. And when you play this build on Necromancer, you are actually very, very tanky with both spell suppression and spell dodge. But mainly, the thing that will definitely get nerfed is how Corpse Life scales with Ignite and maybe how it scales with DD. I do not believe that Ignite-based builds should get nerfed, as I think Ignite-based builds are actually in a pretty decent spot. And next up, we have two of the immune builds. Now here you can see this is the Strength of Blood Slayer. Now you can see MB Extreme. He's actually eating something while tanking the Maven Brain. Now, the reason why this build works is because there's a node called Strength of Blood or Keystone that allows you to take less damage based on how much leech you have. So let me see. So you can see here, he just completely took that Maven Brain, took 0 damage. So life recovery from leech is not applied. 1% less damage for every 2% recovery per second from life leech. So you need to get 200% recovery per second from life leech, and then you're pretty much immune to damage. And then you stack up your leech stacks with Riding Jar and then you make your leech last longer. It can last like up to 30 seconds or so. So pretty much your character is fully immune, completely immune to all sorts of damage. And next up, we have another type of immune build. This is a self-cursed Juggernaut Trauma Stacker. Now, the nice part about this build is you can scale the build to infinite damage as long as you can hit for long enough. You can see here, this is the trauma stacks going up. Now, the reason why this build is immune to damage is because of the fact it uses Replica Eternity Shroud, or it uses Shade Form, which actually makes you immune to damage. Now, normally Shade Form is a short buff, but because of temp chains and stacking cooldown recovery, this allows you to be able to have Shade Form never be on cooldown, and thus you are immune to fizz damage. And because you're immune to fizz damage, you don't suffer any of the drawbacks from the Bone Shatter Trauma stacks, allowing you to fully ramp your damage to infinity. And this is just a very cheesy build. And as we all know, GGG absolutely despises immunity builds. So these are the 4 builds. I guess it's 3 really. 3 archetypes that will completely get nerfed. I completely expect all of these builds. 2 of these builds, the immune builds, will be removed from the game. This one will probably be completely reworked with how Ignite Corpse Life DD works. And then this one here will probably just get a huge damage nerf and probably also get a duration or an AoE nerf, as is customary for GGG to nerf things in 3 or 4 different ways. But now let's look at the things that might get nerfed and not guaranteed to get nerfed. So first up, we have spell suppression. Now, a lot of people feel like spell suppression is broken. Now, in my eyes, spell suppression is kind of balanced, but it does have, I do feel like it is too strong. A lot of people do think that spell suppression, or they want it to be nerfed by making it not guaranteed to work every time, not make it 100%. And that is just completely a terrible, terrible idea. If spell suppression is like that, there is no difference between it being spell suppression or spell dodge or spell block. So the best way that they can nerf spell suppression is they can nerf the damage. Instead of having the damage you take, they should make it so that it's 40% or 35%. Right now, a lot of the encounters and boss fights are not designed around you taking half damage on the spells at all times. And you can pretty much see how much of a joke a lot of the boss fights are when you have 100% spell suppression. Awakener, which used to be really, really scary, is now a complete pushover for almost all builds with spell suppression. It is impossible to actually die to the die beam, and there are a lot of things that no longer kill you that before were extremely, extremely deadly. So I do think they'll probably change this to around 40%. Another way they can nerf spell suppression is lowering the amount you can get on gear. Currently, you can get like 30+% on both your chest and shield, making it completely trivial to be able to negate half of all spell damage. So it's probably a little bit overtuned in that way too. Next up, we have the Cultist Ascendancy. Now, the only reason why I do think the Cultist Ascendancy might be nerfed is because GGG loves nerfing the most popular build. And you can see a Cultist is extremely popular everywhere, right? So even in Delirium Everywhere SSF, a Cultist is up there. And the Cultist is pretty much just a very, very strong build overall. And I actually think this build should be nerfed. I do think that it will be nerfed because it's the #1 ascendancy. But the reason why it's so popular is because it's home to a lot of different builds. A lot of people love Cast on Crit and Softcore Trade. A lot of people like the Death Aura build. And there's also home to like Power Siphon, Instacker, and it's also home to Cold Dot. And it's also home to Eye of Winter Self-Cast. So it's just a very versatile ascendancy. Now, if I have to guess what they might nerf to it, they might nerf Profane Bloom or something like that. Not really sure. I don't really think it deserves to get nerfed at all. It's just a very, very solid ascendancy. And next we have March of the Legion. Now, I'm not really sure if this will get nerfed. I do think that it is a little bit overtuned if you do use it. These pair of boots allow you to do way too much in terms of the damage you might gain. You probably have seen on PoE Ninja these almost like 1 billion DPS builds. This guy's at 117 billion DPS. Now, obviously, this is fake with the gems, but he's exploiting the fact that he's able to use March of the Legion and turn on all of these auras, right? So March of the Legion, probably a little bit too strong. It is balanced by the downside in that it is a horrendous playstyle unless you have a lot of aura duration and cast speed. So next up, we have Poisonous Concoction. I actually don't think that this will get nerfed or deserves to get nerfed. because it is not that crazy good at endgame. It is an extremely, extremely strong leveling skill. It has very, very high base damage. And this added chaos damage that you get from your flash recovery rate is actually just insane. It gives you an insane amount of flat chaos damage as soon as you hit maps and while you're leveling if you just roll your flash a little bit. Now, this is pretty much just a really, really strong leveling skill and league start skill, but its endgame scaling is not exactly the best in the world. So they might do a slight tuning in the numbers. And next up, we have everyone's favorite aura in softcore and hardcore, and it is Determination. Now, this thing was recently buffed in that it gave you, oh my goodness, I am actually using the wrong wiki. So you can see here, this is just not updated. That is the old Determination. So make sure to use poewiki.net or whatever. But let's just use PoEDB, the tried and true. So recently, they changed this aura and that it now gives you 2,051 flat additional armor and 49% more armor. I'm not really sure if they will nerf it. A lot of people complain about Determination being too strong or all of the defensive auras. If they do nerf it, they'll probably slightly tune the number down a little bit from 2051. However, I do think that Determination is in a good spot. I do think that defenses are in a good spot, and we do sacrifice a lot to get defenses in that we have to forego probably 250% damage auras, which actually does add up. But basically, those are the nerf predictions. Guaranteed to be nerfed is Seismic Trap, DD, Strength of Blood, Immunity, Self Curse, Trauma Stacking, Bone Shatter, Immunity Build. And then things that might get nerfed are Spell Suppression, Occultist Ascendancy, March of the Legion, Poisonous Concoction, Number Scaling, and Determination Aura. So hopefully we'll see soon on Friday on January 27th. We probably won't see it, but we'll probably have a better idea of what will get nerfed. And then we'll be able to hopefully theory craft out more league starters. I am still playing Venom Gyre. The build is pretty fun. Almost done with the SSF Awakener run, and I'll give some updates about how I found the build on SSF setting with very little gear. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments down below what you do think will get nerfed or what might get buffed actually too. But I hope you find more Mage Bloods, Exalts, and Squires to me, and see you next time. Bye.